Hello, Legionnaires and fellow Lord of the Rings fans. We are back with another unit overview. You guys did really enjoy the Goblin one that we did a few weeks ago. So I thought we'd come back and we'd do another one. And we're not doing quite a main mod faction. I did suggest I'd do maybe some of the Last Breath ones, which are basically at this point vanilla factions. So they are going to be in the sort of like in the main mod in some capacity. So I thought we would look at Dol Amroth, which is probably one of the most popular factions to play when Last Breath is in play. It's a really cool unit. Oh, faction, sorry, not just unit. This is a very cool unit we're looking at, the Pelargir Marines. We'll come on to them in a minute. But yeah, really cool faction. Our Dol Amroth, really well-rounded. I'd say one of the more well-rounded factions, which is why they're so popular to play with on the battlefield. And yeah, we'll get into why they're so well-rounded later on. But yes, definitely get yourself some snacks, get yourself some drinks, sit back, relax, and enjoy as we go over the strengths and the weaknesses of these units. And then we'll look at some sort of possible compositions you guys can make for sieges or for a land battle. If you haven't seen these sort of videos before, we always do that right at the end of the video. But yeah, we'll get straight on into it. I will look at the Pelargir Marines, which will be the first of the swords we'll look at, and then we'll move on to the sort of like the spear type units, shock, archers, and other range units, and also cavalry, last but not least. So that's kind of how we do it in categories, a bit like that. But yes, Pelargir Marines are first on the list, and as you can see here, they're a tier 2 medium melee infantry unit. They have excellent melee defense, which is 49, which is pretty damn good, and they can form shield wall if they want to, which obviously can boost that up. They've got 33 melee attack, charge bonus of 36, melee defense, melee damage, sorry, of 36 as well. They've got armor of 30, which is pretty poor. They are a medium melee infantry unit, but you could almost put them down as lights, to be honest. Like these guys, if they get shot at by missiles, they are going down pretty quickly. Not a very good unit to try and defend a choke point with, because they're going to get focused down. They're going to need some extra support in that choke point to sort of protect them from the missiles. Morale, it says 52, but that's with bonuses and stuff like that. It's actually 41 base, which is actually really good for a tier 2 unit, but that's like force is good for you. They have some pretty good stats. We might have gone over a few of these units, Pelargir Marines, like in Gondor long time ago, but I feel like we'll go over them once again. But yeah, it's speed as well, 37, and health at 90, which is not too bad. And they have that all-important 2 Javi ammo, which is very important. It's kind of why you bring them, because you get Javis, and Javis can kill dozens of enemies very easily. So yeah, this is why you bring them. Missile block chance of 31, which isn't too bad if that shield of theirs does protect them a fair amount. We'll move on to the second, and I feel like the most underused sword unit possibly in Dawnless Days. People probably don't even know about it, and it is the Prince's Footman. These bad boys here, no one brings these guys. I actually did recently bring them in a stream siege. Didn't do too bad, to be honest, these guys. They have good melee attack, average missile block chance, and average melee attack as well. Technically, I think these guys are slightly cheaper than the Pelargir Marines. I don't know why I put these guys second, but it doesn't really matter nonetheless. But yeah, the Prince's Footman, 29 melee attack. So we have got down a little bit on the 33 of the Pelargir Marines. So yeah, these guys are a little bit worse in that case. Melee defense of 43 as well, which I think is ever so slightly up, if I remember. I'm honestly trying to remember these stats now. Yeah, no, it's down. It is down, 49. So yeah, and then we have a charge bonus of 34. That is down as well from 36. Melee damage is still 36. Armor of 45 though is up. Missile block chance still 31. Even though it looks like they probably have a bigger shield and probably slightly better armor, like on their shoulders there. Morale is lower as well, 36, which is a bit more sort of your average. So even though you might have some slightly better armor, and they have worse health actually as well, and slightly slower in speed. But yeah, you have worse health. So yeah, Pelargir Marines have pretty poor armor but better health to back that up. Yeah, you're getting ready for battle there, sir. So yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting toss-up. You get a bit more armor here, less health, same missile block, or do you go for more health, less armor, and you get a Javi? and you get slightly better stats. It's an interesting sort of conundrum you've got to deal with. It depends what sort of like armies I guess you're facing off against, whether you need the javies or the extra sort of like health or extra armor really. So yeah, Princess Footman rarely brought. It's a bit of a shame. Kind of hope they had a bit more going for them. But since Pelargon Marines are a thing, people bring Pelargon Marines. To be honest, you only would maybe bring these guys if you had the extra cash and would want to. Like if you can't afford the next sword unit, you might get a few of these guys instead after you've got your 3 Pelargon Marines. Because Pelargon Marines are capped at 3, so you can only bring 3 of them. So in the Footmen, at least, you know, they aren't capped. You can bring dozens of them if you wanted to. But yeah, anyway, that is the Princess Footman. And now we move on to the unit we all know and love, and is probably one of the best swords around. I'm still really hoping they're going to work on the blue. I'm not really sure if I'm a big fan of it. But this is the Foot Knights of Dol Amroth. These are the dismounted guys. I really just hope they kind of just make them look like the Swan Knights, like that are mounted. That are in the main mod. I really just hope they make them look like that, because that's ideally what they are. Basically, it's just guys that are just, instead of being on horseback, they're on foot. But yes, these guys do look awesome, and these are the creme de la creme of the swords. They really are. So yeah, excellent melee defense. 54. It is excellent melee attack of 40. So it's, yeah, very close to the same as the Pelargon Marines. I think that's just about 3 shy. Charge bonus of 36. Melee damage 36. That's the same as Pelargon Marines. Armor is 65. Missile block still 31, which is insane, I feel like, because they have so much more armor. Health at 90, so the same as the Pelargon Marines. And then speed is 36. They're pretty speedy as well, actually. Which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Foot Knights of Dol Amroth, this is what most people will be bringing for their infantry. If they can afford to, you're going to spam out multiple of these, because these guys are army killers. They really are. They are super strong, super elite. And yeah, they've got, and then their morale as well, actually. We didn't look at the morale, but 46 is not bad at all. And obviously that's boosted up with various other things to 57. But yeah, 46, very, very good. So yeah. Really, really good unit. This, like I said, what you can probably bring most of your troops, most of your sword troops are made out of. But yeah, really hoping that one day they're going to work on the blue. I know that the devs are quite busy. I quite like the breastplate. The breastplate looks cool. I just don't know if I like these guys here with the blue chest or the blue shield. I think it could just be toned down a little bit. But yeah, apart from that, a great unit, that is for sure. But anyway, we'll move on to the spears. So here we are with the spears. So for those of you that might know Dol Amroth's roster in and out, you may be aware that there aren't really that many spears. So I've decided to put just about every unit that has a spear type weapon into the same category here. So we do have 3 units to look at. But this is the actual one and only like spear unit, and it is the Amrothian Watchman, a light spear infantry. Some of you might just, you know, have on the front lines, maybe absorb a charge, or maybe to support your cavalry in a cavalry fight. You might send these guys to support there, because spears are cav killers. But yeah, these guys are probably, you know, best suited to garrison duty, really, rather than being on the front line. These guys are just going to defend the Dol Amroth's harbour or something like that. But yes, a light spear, good melee defense of 41. It certainly is. We haven't really got anything to compare this to, I guess. It's just kind of similar, I guess, in sort of melee defense to you're getting like close to the Dol Amroth Foot Knights, that's for sure. But not quite there. Charge bonus of 29, so you're definitely down on anything that the swords have. But that swords have always had you know, better charge bonuses than spears. Melee attack 18. It is a spear unit at the end of the day, and not a very easy spear to use. Armor of 45, so it's, yeah, similar. That's exactly the same to the Footman, I think, actually, which is kind of crazy. This light spear has the same armor as them. Health is 90 as well, which is the big one I'm seeing, because, yeah, the Footmen have less health than these guys, which I don't know if that's a typo or something like that, but I think they might need to look into that. I think the Footmen, to make them a bit more useful, I think get that health up to 90. Speed 36, pretty similar to most of the units that we've seen around here. Missile block is also 31, which seems a bit wrong, because they have a much larger shield than most of the other guys that we've seen so far. today, and their morale is 29, which I think is the lowest we've seen so far as well. Melee damage is 32, so I mean not too bad. Yeah, they get like base 28 and an armor piercing of 4, which is not bad at all. Well, it's not great either. It's okay for a spear unit. Is what I'm trying to get at. It'll do some damage, these guys, but not much. That is for sure. But yeah, that is the Amrothian Watchman, the only spear unit in Dol Amroth's roster. They don't have any really like trained units or elite ones like Gondor does. It's kind of like that's one of their big differences. But here we have another spear type unit, one we've looked at probably before when we did the Gondor unit overview many years ago. But it is the Prince's Coast Guard. We'll go over them once again very quickly. A tier 2 medium polearm infantry unit, melee attack 30. Melee defense 34. Like I said, these aren't really comparable to anything because it's the only polearm unit in the roster. We have charge bonus of 33, so if you take them out of phalanx, they can do a bit of a charge. We've got melee damage of 36. It's 24 base, and then 12 armor piercing, which is very good. It's kind of like one of the strengths of the polearm. Then we have the armor here of 45, which is kind of standard, it seems, for most Dol Amroth units, it seems. Missile block of 0. That is the big thing with polearms. They're busy holding on to a long pole with a spike on the end. They can't shield themselves with a shield, unless you're the officer there. He's lucky enough to. Morale, it's saying 52, but it's 41, which is very good, actually. So yeah, the Prince's Coast Guard, they'll hold for quite a while. Even though you focus them down, you'll need to kill most of the unit if you want to get rid of it. Speed is 37, which is quicker than quite a few of the units we've actually looked at. Yes, they are medium, while a lot of other units have been have been heavy or very heavy. But I'm pretty sure that's quicker than the light spear that we just looked at. Yeah, it is. These guys are quicker. I don't know if that's if they come out of phalanx formation, maybe. But these guys are quicker than Amrothian Watchmen. I don't know if that's meant to be a thing or not, but it is. And then morale is 41. So yeah, you could, like we said, you got to get rid of most of them. The next unit, though, that we are looking at is the Tirith Air Sentinels. One of my favorite looking units. I feel like we've got to look at it from this angle here. So we get that glorious shield there. It really does look like a Macedonian phalangite, these guys do. They do look amazing. This unit is just, yeah, very cool, very unique. And yeah, I do like it. So yeah, this is the elite pike that Dol Amroth has. So yeah, I believe back in the day, even I can't believe it now, but yeah, back in the day, Fountain Guards used to be a pike unit. They're now a polearm unit. So Gondor and his vassal now have a elite pike once again, instead of having elite polearms. But yeah, they do have their stats here. I mean, health at 90. I'm surprised it's not higher, to be honest, since it's the tier 4 unit. Speed 35, so just a little bit slower than the Prince's Coast Guard, and they're also only a little bit slower than the like the Amrothian Watchman. Morale is saying 65, but it is in fact 54. It's still very good. Missile block is 25. These guys actually do have a missile block because they have that shield. It's one of the very few pikes polearms that will have a missile block because it has got that that shield there, which is great. Like for Dol Amroth, it's really cool. Armor of 65, I think it's one of the highest armors we've seen so far. 18 melee damage here. Pikes, in comparison to polearms, yeah, pretty poor actually in doing damage. But the difference is that they have a much longer range when it comes to their pike. Charge bonus here of 27. Yeah, they're not really meant for charging. It's a pikeman unit at the end of the day. Melee defense is 49 though. This is what pikes do. They defend. They're more of a defensive unit than they are an offensive unit. And then their melee attack of 34 there, which is alright. So again, nothing really to compare that to with the rest of the faction because they are all sort of different spear type units. But there you go. That is all of these spears / pikes and polearms. We'll now get onto the ranged units. Actually, I told a lie. It is in fact not the range unit. So of course we have the shock unit next. We have the Champions of Dor Enil, which are the only shock unit again for Dol Amroth, but a very good one nonetheless. It's a very heavy shock infantry. It's tier 3, I think it's technically counted as. But yeah, excellent melee attack, very poor missile block chance, average armor. So yeah, armor 65 is definitely better than quite a lot of what we've seen already here today. I don't know if I call that average. Melee damage of 47 there with 40 base and then 7 armor piercing. So yeah, much better than most things we've seen. But actually armor piercing wise, yeah, like the polearm's done a lot better there. Melee attack of 43, yeah, much better than most things we've seen. Melee defense 38 is a bit lower, but actually not too bad for a shock unit. Charge bonus 37. Health is at 80. Again, another unit at 80. I don't know if this is supposed to be the case, because like most of the Dol Amroth units, we've seen consistently being at 90. Again, it's just these guys and the Prince's Footman. Maybe they've done it for a good reason. But yeah, I personally feel like they've kind of mixed around either 80 and 90. I don't know. Unless it's like a elite tier unit, you usually just up their health and everyone else stays the same. But yeah, interesting to see. But yeah, and then speed 36, which has been pretty standard for most of the units in today's roster. And then we have the base value at 46. Morale, so not too bad. And of course, that 0 missile block chance, as all shock have, as they can't hold on to a shield because they're busy holding a massive sword. But we will now look at the range since we're here. And there's only 2 range units for Dol Amroth, which you could argue is probably their weakness. They are, I'd still say, well-rounded, but their weakness is their range, if you were to really pick one. We have the Prince's Marksmen here, which are the only bow unit available in the roster. They are a medium bow unit. Their range is 200, which is pretty standard for most like good archers. And when I say good, I mean like the forces of good. Like unless you're elves, you've probably got a bit more like 220. But most manish factions have around about 200 range. 16 ammunition, which again is very common. Speed 37, health 80 again instead of that 90, which has been fluctuating around. Morale of, well, it says 38, but it's going to be in fact 27, so it is one of the lower ones. Armor at 40. I guess they get that from their chainmail. They don't seem like they deserve 40 armor, that's for sure. Melee damage 25. Charge bonus 26, melee defense 21, and melee attack 20, but all very non sort of stats because they are bow unit at the end of the day. But yeah, that is pretty much them. They're pretty solid. Again, have 0 missile block chance, so it's not on here. All archers have it, so these guys very vulnerable to being like counter shot by archers. But they're actually pretty good. If you mass these guys up, you can and use all 4 on one target. Can do some considerable damage, which is, to be honest, how you should use archers in Dawnless Days, or it is the meta at least at the moment. Just stack all your archers up and shoot at one target, and then move on to the next. Anyway, the other ranged unit that we have is the Amrothian Deckmen. These lads, you know, they're used to being on the sides of the ships, on the bows of the ships, getting ready to throw their javies over the side to maybe hit some corsairs or something like that. But yes, they are I think they're a tier 1 or a tier 2. They're a very light skirmisher, and yeah, very poor armor, poor melee defense, which yeah, 25, and their armor is 5, which is yeah, because they are on a boat, they can't have lots of armor on, otherwise they'll sink to the bottom of the ocean. Health is at 90, so they do get a bit more health because they have no armor. Speed is 40, it's probably the speediest units we've checked out so far. Ammo is at 6. Range, of course, is 60 because it's a Javi unit. They can't throw as far as they can fire a bow. And their morale is also, yeah, pretty pitiful. It's 22. It's the lowest we've seen yet today. But yeah, very useful unit. Might use it. You probably want to bring these guys maybe if you're facing off against trolls and you run out of Pelagear marine ammunition. It's probably a good reason to bring them. But you don't have to necessarily. I feel like these guys' role, you often don't see them being brought because people just rely on the Pelagear Marines for Javies rather than the Amrothian Deckmen. But they do occasionally get brought. But anyway, we will now move on to the most important category for Dol Amroth, the Cavalry. So we will start with the melee cavalry. Here we have the Amrothian Squires. And so, yeah, another one you don't really see being brought. It's pretty cheap. It's about 800 in price. It's a medium melee cavalry. Very poor armor at 35. They have average melee defense, as they should as a melee cav. Have some decent melee defense. They have 34, 20 melee attack, charge bonus of 50, which is pretty poor from a cavalry unit. Melee damage of 25. Armor, yeah, we said already 35. Missile block 39. It's not too bad. They have that shield. And I guess have some armor of their own. Morale is also pretty pitiful. So it's 34 with bonuses, but it's 26. So they're only slightly better than the Javies, which is pretty insane. Speed 75, which you kind of expect for a medium cav unit to be pretty speedy. And health 165, because they get like the health of both the man and the horse kind of combined together. They do. But yeah, and then that's pretty much them. Don't often see them being brought. If people are going to bring any melee cav, they'll probably bring the next one. But also this rarely gets brought as a unit, and this is the Knights of Edelond. It's a really cool unit as well. This is it's a very heavy melee cavalry unit. I think it would be technically tier 4, maybe tier 3. But it's, 40 melee attack, miles ahead of the Squires. Melee defense of 54 is really good. Charge bonus 50, still the same as the Squires. I thought that might be a little bit higher because they're more heavily armored. Armor of 65. I feel like you could put that up a little bit more. Speed 75, so it's still the same pace, even though these guys are very heavy melee cav. Health 165. I would put that up a little bit, to be honest. I feel like they could deserve it. Their morale is 42. Missile block is still 31, though. I still put that up a little bit as well, because they are so heavily armored. Or at least put up something, one of these stats, like armor, missile block, or health. Because these guys are supposed to be like top tier and also well armored, so I would put that up a little bit. But I often like bringing these guys. I feel like melee cav could be quite useful in some scenarios, and they're a bit cheaper. If you can't afford to bring like a Swan Knight, bringing these guys is never a bad idea, because they can pack a punch. As like, Sons of the Eye, they pack a punch. These guys are just as good as the Sons of the Eye, really, in some ways, and can pack their own punch. This unit you do see being brought, and a bit more commonly now, we have the Princess Sergeants. This is Gondor's roster. It's also in Dol Amroth's roster. But yeah, it's a really cool unit. Tier 2, very good for its cost. To be honest, it's a cost-effective unit. 27 melee attack. It's the first spear cavalry. I think it's the only spear cavalry that Dol Amroth has. I could be wrong. I know Gondor has 2, but I think the next 2 units are both shock. So it's the only spear cav that it has. So there's nothing really to compare it to. Melee attack, 27. Melee defense is 56. So that's pretty good. I guess we could compare it to the Knights of Edelond. It's actually better than the Knights of Edelond. Charge bonus 65. Do have a better charge than the Knights of Edelond because they have a spear, so they rightly should. Speed is 85, so they're quicker than both of the 2 units we've already looked at for cavalry. Slightly less health by 5, and then their morale is 34. Missile block is 39, which also I think is less. This is more than the Knights of Edelon, by 8. And the armor is 45, which is obviously kind of where their big negative is there. But yeah, actually, in some ways, these guys have got better stats than the Knights of Edelon, which is kind of crazy to think about. The next unit here is the Patrollers of Belfalas, a medium shock cavalry. I bet you didn't even know this unit was available in the roster for Dol Amroth, because I don't think I've ever seen it being brought in a replay. It really rarely is brought. But yeah, Patrollers of Belfalas, all negatives, as you can see there. It's really not a great unit. Medium shock cavalry. Very poor missile block chance of 0, which is quite unique for a cav unit. But they don't have a shield, I guess, so that's possibly why. Health 165, speed 75, so they're slower than the Princess Sergeants. They've got slightly more health, though. Morale, I think that's going to be like 24, so yeah, it's nearly as bad as the Amrothian, Watchman. We've got armor of 30, shows a very poor charge bonus, so is 90. It's what they're obviously there for. It's going to be a one-hit wonder charge, probably. Because you're probably going to get hit by range units, and this unit is going to get vaporized. So yeah, I rarely ever see this brought, and for a reason. It's not that great. The next unit, though, you see brought all the time. I don't know how these guys have got bloodied up, but they are bloodied up. So there you go. Look at that. Knights of the Silver Swan. These guys already bloodied up, ready for war. They've got 55 melee attack, which is insane, but I just want to appreciate the models. I don't know why the Last Breath devs have not decided just to make the Foot Knights look like this. These guys look amazing. I'm so glad that the main mod, when they rework these Knights of the Silver Swan, they look, yeah, excellent. One of the best units around, that's for sure. Melee defense, so 26. Yeah, they're not really their defensive unit. They're supposed to go in and get out. That's their job. 90 charge, so same as the Patrollers of Belfalas. Melee damage at 32. Armor 65. Obviously vastly more than the guys from Belfalas. Health 190. That's just what I'm saying. Like a tier 4 unit, they get a bit more health. That's kind of what they do. But yeah, it's really, really cool. And then we have, yeah, Morale 54, which is base 45. And Missile Block is 39. So it's pretty similar to the Prince's Sergeants, actually, in that case, and higher than the Knights of Edelond. I don't know why the Knights of Edelond are so low, but yeah, they should probably up their stats a little bit, I think. And then anyway, last but not least, the only other sort of unique unit I decided to bring it is the Trebuchet. Just to show it off, because yeah, most factions just have the Onager. I showed off when Mordor had their sort of unit added, which is the Great Onager. I thought I'd show off the Trebuchet as well. You guys know what this is. The unit that mans the walls during the siege of Minnesota. There are plenty of these. But yeah, it's obviously the big thing you're really looking at is range 750. This thing flings missiles across the map. It really does. It's ammo 20. I think it's pretty standard, but yeah, there are the rest of the stats. If you want to look at them, they're not really that important. The only thing I have realized is that they are using a Gondorian crew. They might want to think about changing that to a Dol Amroth crew, but that's just a small thing. And then over here is Prince Imrahil as the unique general who has just a Knights of the Silver Swan. I don't think his stats differ at all. Yeah, I don't think they do at all. So it's just a unique general. Model who I brought at today's general. But those are all of the units for Dol Amroth. So now we will go to checking out some potential army comps. So I'll see you folks in a second. So here we are on the sort of the army building screen. As you can see here we have every single unit we brought. We showed off everything apart from the of course the Onager. I brought the Trebuchet just because well, we don't often. It's a unique unit that not every faction has. It's something why people bring Dol Amroth is for that Trebuchet, and now that it can move around as well, very, very important. I did kind of miss out on that. The 3 generals you could bring as well. Imrahil is dead in the middle. You've got the Knights of the Silver Swan as well. You can just bring a generic one, or you can bring the Champions of Dor and Il. But everyone usually brings Imrahil because then you can still then bring another 3. Knights of the Silver Swan if you wanted to, so you avoid that cap. While if you say bring like 1 less of these, oh, not that, not that, thank you. That then you can see you now capped out, and you can like, oh, what do I do? I guess I'll bring another Knights of Edelon, which is never a bad thing. These are always a good option as well, in my opinion. Anyway, let us build some sort of army. So usually when we are doing like a land battle, we do 17,500. That's usually what like tournament rules state. And depending on like a land battle and like the rules that are set in place, there are obviously a variety of different builds you can go for. I would probably start with Imrahil as my general, and then to finish it off, bring the 3 Knights of the Silver Swan. That is typically the sort of build I would go for. And then I probably would go for probably between 5 to 6 sort of Foot Knights of Dol Amroth. Probably bring the Pelasgian Marines, and then I mean you can just I'd probably bring the Prince's Marksman. Actually, we'll go with that is a sort of a build, and then because I have exactly 625, I would bring a spear. That maybe will support my Cavs fight somewhere. Pelasgian Marines could also do this as well if you wanted to. But I always feel like if you're, depending on the faction you're playing against, if you're facing trolls, these guys you might want to bring. But if you're not facing trolls, you might want to think about bringing like something like, I don't know, maybe Maybe want to bring something a little bit different. Maybe go like a bit more shock. And then maybe bring like a one jabby. It depends what you're sort of going up against. There's a couple of different builds you could take on. But yeah, something, I don't know. I would go with probably something like this to start. Like that's a relatively useful land battle one, like land battle army. I always feel like you want units that are going to be able to absorb some shots, because in a land battle, I always feel like archers, you know, have a lot more power and maneuverability than they do necessarily in a siege battle, because pathfinding sometimes is a problem for archers. They can't get into the right positions. So your infantry sometimes is spared from their you know, deathly arrows. But anyway, that's sort of a maybe some sort of a land army. But I'd always like put as much money as possible into Cav. Cav is king. Win the Cav fight with the spears, maybe with some Pelican Marines, or with, if you maybe didn't want Pelican Marines but instead wanted the shock, then yeah, I think that's one way you can win it. Yeah, literally Pelican Marines and Princess Footman are the same price. Pelican Marines are just vastly better. I think they need to make Princess Footman cheaper, or make them better. Just so they are worth this price. I think these guys are just they aren't comparable in any way. And you get the Javies, and you get the extra melee tech. You get a bit of extra armor, but with these footmen, but not much. Anyway, we'll go on to sieges. Sieges, when we do them, usually are with about 20,000. Again, that usually there are rules involved in that. I'd probably again bring Imrahil as my general. I did actually in the recent one bring Footman, and I would actually recommend. I feel like that kind of worked, and I'm going to do it again. I feel like this kind of worked. Footman, I did have a couple of swords, and then the Pelican Marines. I think I brought one shock, and then I had my bows. Oh no, this is for defense, sorry. I'm thinking of defense right now. Let me do defense first. Let me build my army for defense, since I'm in that mindset. Yeah, Imrahil, a couple of... 4 footmen. I think I brought all the Pelican Marines. I think I brought a couple of these guys. Then I brought 1 shock, my 4 bows, and then I had a fair amount left over. I think I might have brought 1 more footman. But I think that's an ample amount. You could bring that, and then you have 7, and then you have exactly that right amount for a Prince's Sergeant, which is always build. Or you could go 1 less footman, which I actually might have done now, and brought a Knight of Edelond. Leaves you with 500 though, which is kind of hard to get rid of. So I guess you could bring like an Amrothian Deckman or something, depending on what the rules are. Or yeah, or you could just chevron some stuff up. You could always chevron your Knight of Edelond up really high. And that could be an army, and that's quite good. I think mass in a defense is quite useful, because if you could hold an enemy with like some pretty mid-tier units like these footmen here, or the Pelican Marines, you can get a lot done. You can also cycle charge with your Cav, like Knights of Edelond and Imrahil can be used, or the Prince's Sergeant, which is probably cheaper, more effective to do some cycle charging. But Knights of Edelond, I think, are quite good. I also just kind of a big fan. Don't often see these guys being brought, so I quite like to bring them occasionally. But yeah, that's a build for defense potentially. Then on attack, you usually have about 20,000. So again, Imrahil, I probably would bring 1 Knight of the Silver Swan just in case of a sally out. I maybe would bring that, or maybe I might change that out. We'll see. To a Prince's Sergeant, the 4 archers, of course, and then I would probably just keep clicking this Foot Knight of Dol Amroth until you're satisfied. Generally, this is the build you'd probably go with. You could bring some Tirith Air Sentinels. In this case, yeah, sure, we'll go for it. We'll say we'll bring some pikes. And then we could bring another foot. Actually, no, we will go with a couple of Pelican Marines. I don't think I'd spam them out. I'd bring a couple of Javies, because it's unlikely that if you're attacking, that your opponent is going to have trolls. Because they're expensive at trolls. They're like 2-3 grand. So yeah, they're like a lot of money to put into them to potentially lose quite easily, and they're not easy to use in a defensive manner. But I think that's a relatively decent build. You could always bring an extra Cav unit if you wanted to, if you're really worried about a sally out, depending on who you're facing. But if you're Dol Amroth, people probably aren't selling on you. You've got some pretty good Cav, and you can kind of defend yourself pretty well. But yeah, that's a relatively decent build. I guess if you were in charge of the artillery, you could maybe like, yeah, bring some artillery instead. So yeah, you could maybe instead of getting the Terrace Air, you could bring Prince's Coast Guards, bring the Trebuchet, and then you could bring maybe another sword or something like that, or another Pelican Marine. Whatever you choose. But yeah, that is a pretty stacked army. That's a full stack there, and that's 20 grand. It's a really good army, in my opinion. Yeah, so there you go. Dol Amroth. Let me know what you think about the builds, if you maybe would use them. Let me know if you have any success with them. And let me know if you sort of, enjoy these unit reviews. If there's any sort of like, any faction you'd like to see next. I've done quite a few, but there are still quite a lot to go through. Certainly Last Breath, we've got quite a lot. I've done Umbar as well. And we've done now Dol Amroth, I think, for Last Breath. We've still got like Khan, I think Dorwinian still to be done. Iron Hills has been done as well. But yeah, there's a fair few factions still to get through. I'm really looking forward to it. There's a few that I'm kind of holding off on. I feel like Imladris and Linden at some of the OGs I haven't yet to do. Rudar we haven't done. Linden and Imladris I'm kind of holding off on because I think they are still going to get quite a bit added to them. They are still quite lacking, as you can kind of see here. Very lacking. I mean, their rosters aren't probably going to be big, but they're definitely going to get some lower tier stuff, I'd imagine, which I would quite like to, add in before we do those. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this unit overview. If you want to see more, like I said, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that shenanigans, and I'll see you folks in the next one. Bye for now.